Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Gaijin have just announced the F-2A pre-order, and I thought we would have a look at it on the dev server so you can see what it is like, at least when it comes to the game. The F-2A ADTW, which you can see right here, is a slightly different version of the standard Viper. Basically, it has a little bit different weaponry, but everything else on it is basically the same. You do have different camos though, and with the pre-order, if you purchase this one, you'll get access to a unique title, which is the Viper Zero title. You'll also get 3,000 Golden Eagles, 30 days of premium account, then also a decal, the Gifu Air Base of the Japan Air Self-Defense Force emblem, which I think is pretty cool. It's also a rank 8 premium, which basically means that you're able to 100% efficiently research everything in the tech tree for Japan that you can see here, which is pretty nuts when you actually think about it. The F4EJ ADTW at the moment also is able to do that, just to let you know, but once they add rank 9, which, to be honest, with all of these vehicles coming in at rank 8, it might not be too far off, especially for the aviation side of things. So don't be surprised if this one becomes the only vehicle that can 100% efficiently research this tech tree by the end of the year, or at least next year. The F-2A ADTW has a distinct difference between it and the standard F-2A, and it comes in the form of its weaponry. With the F-2A standard, you get access to the AAM-4s, which you can see here, and also the AIM-7Ms and the AAM-3s. This means that you can run a loadout with the AAM-4s and also AAM-3s and additional CAS ordnance if you want to. For the F-2A ADTW, what instead you get is access to the AAM-3s and the AIM-7Ms, but no AAM-4s, so you don't get the active radar homing piece to it. You do get access to the AAQ-2 targeting pod. You also get access to all of the kind of ground ordnance, including the anti-ship missiles, and also all of the bombs, up to 2,000 pounders. Plus, you have the GNSS guided JDAMs, and also LJDAMs is something that they mentioned in the dev blog as well, even if they are not on the vehicle. So basically what you're looking at is a lot of different things on this vehicle that you'll be able to take, and from an air-to-air point of view, having semi-actives and then active IR, sorry, I'm screwing it up. This vehicle will have IR guided missiles and semi-active radar homing missiles, okay? It will not have active radar homing missiles, and that is going to be the difference between the two. Now, for me personally, when it comes to these types of things, I think generally it means that it's just going to be a bit lower BR, same performance, just not having access to that. The only issue it's going to have is being in the top tier meta, right? The top tier meta at the moment, if you have a look at planes, is stuff like at 14.0, like you can see here with the F-18C late. You have also, stuff like the F-15E, that's 14.0. With these Japanese vehicles, the F-2A ADTW is at 13.0, so you can get into that high-tier matchmaking. Yes, it'll be quantitative, so each team will only be a max of 25% 14.0, but those vehicles are quite spicy against vehicles like this, so you do have to be very careful of this. The history of the vehicle is pretty cool too. You have jointly developed by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and also American company General Dynamics and also Lockheed. The F-2A fighter is based on the American F-16 for the Japanese Self-Defense Forces. While maintaining its basic aerodynamics, the F-2A received an enlarged wing made of composite materials, a reinforced fuselage, and full Japanese avionics, including an AESA radar and an integrated fire control system. The prototype first flew in 1995, and serial production of 94 aircraft, including F-2B combat trainers, were carried out from 2000 to 2011. Despite its technological advancements, the program faced a record cost of about $120 million per aircraft, and during operation, problems with the resource of composite wings and electronics were revealed, requiring expensive upgrades. Today, the F-2A remains the key strike aircraft of the Maritime Self-Defense Force. However, it's gradually being replaced by the F-35A and also B. The unique experience of creating the F-2A allowed Japan to develop its own fifth-generation technology demonstrator, which is the X2 Shinshin, which maybe we'll see in the future. But with this vehicle, the internals, you have a radar, which is the JAPG-2. Once again, this is exactly the same as the standard F-2As. It's an incredibly powerful radar, has a really nice search, has ground modes, and also has access to TWS ESA, plus it's able to data link 4 targets at the same time. Plus, you have the 51 NCTR type, so you're able to tell what you're looking at, which especially in sim is very useful. You also have a very powerful RWR, the JAPR4. The bands are quite nice and everything else on it is quite good. The basic thing that this thing is missing out of all of the high tier vehicles that you'll see is it doesn't have like the HMD or the HMS. So you aren't able to lock missiles off the bore. Instead, you're going to have to turn the vehicle to it. So it's unfortunate, but you know, it has literally everything else. It has CCIPs, CCRPs, EGS, and all of the other stuff. The vehicle also has the M61A2 cannon, which of course is the Vulcan with 512 rounds, and the engine is the Ishikawa Harima F110 IHI 129 with a lot of afterburner thrust. So this vehicle also gets access to some really good rewards. You can see here a very high amount of SL and also research. So if you do want to just kind of like blitz through this tree, if you are comfortable with the semi-active radar homing and IR meta, you can do very well. And if you want a CAS support for your kind of ground vehicles at 12.3, you can also run this as well. So basically, if you are running your high-tier lineup with the TANSAM and also the TKX and the Type 10, you can bring this along too. And even though it's a 12.3, you'll still basically be in the top echelon meta. This thing right now doesn't have any other camos, so this is kind of all that you get. It's still a nice camo though, and also it gets access to 60 countermeasures and nothing else. There was talk about it getting a different pod, but unfortunately I don't think that's happened. The amount of fuel that this thing carries on board is pretty low, only 24 minutes, but you can get external fuel tanks, which will help you out. So radar-wise, you have the TWS, you have the TWS HDN, the GMTI as well. All of those work very well. The cockpit is kind of here for certain vehicles, but it's not here for others. So that should be kind of pointed out. And the general turn rate of this thing is obviously incredibly good. At the end of the day, what you have here is you have a fantastic vehicle in terms of like how it's all going to work. And I think generally, if I'm like looking at a high tier vehicle to kind of grind out with and to kind of go through with, it's kind of on the same level as a lot of the other ones which have access to, you know, this high tier weaponry. The only worry really for me when I look at something like this is, well, what happens when, you know, you run into somebody who doesn't really understand how these work, or doesn't understand how like radar locks work, or how TWS mode works, or how any of that stuff works, right? And that can be a bit of a problem in terms of it. And that, you know, would kind of make me a little bit sad. And I don't want to throw people into a top tier where they just don't understand the mechanics, and that basically means that they just have a really rough time. And I feel like a vehicle like this can definitely do that, right? Now, luckily, with like a lot of the stuff that they're doing, you can see that there is, you know, abilities to actually use these things in different ways. So you can see the anti-ship missiles now are actually working. So even though you have like the guided bombs, you have the JDAMs, you have, you know, the dumb bombs as well, you have the drag bombs, you can also just use the anti-ship missiles as CAS. And it's going to be interesting to see how these active radar homing heads do compared to other stuff, especially now that we have way more targets which are in the sea, not just in like air battles, but also in other battles too. You also need to learn how to reset your TWS. That's going to be quite a big thing as well in terms of it. So let's see if this thing can hit from 14 kilometers away with a GMTI mode. It can just like lock onto anything. It's kind of crazy how good these types of missiles are. You remember when the Tornado came out, and you remember when the Tornado came out, there was a lot of people saying how the missiles were going to be really overpowered. Well, yeah, this is basically that. from an air point of view. So we'll have to see if it is overpowered or not to be able to use these things kind of going in and homing in on targets and hitting them. But when it comes to all the other kind of armaments it has access to, they're pretty standard. The AM-3 is a very good IR missile. There's no real kind of problems with it. You can see there, because we lost lock in the middle, it did lose the actual target, but it got pretty close. And the AIM-7M, of course, is a fantastic missile as well when it's actually working. The AM-3s, you can see that they're actually really hard to see because they don't have the smoke on them. So, seeing them coming in can be a bit of a problem for people, especially when it comes to certain game modes, such as, of course, simulator, even realistic, and they're also pretty powerful from close range. The question is, will you be able to dodge all of the active radar homing missiles first while this thing kind of goes around? And that is going to be the tricky bit. For me, I honestly think this thing's going to be pretty good. I'm looking forward to the fact that this vehicle is finally coming into the game, and coming into the game the way it is. I'm hoping that, as I said, people enjoy these things, and you can even lock onto the ground vehicles with your standard stuff if you want to. But I am just be careful of running this thing in top tier metas, because it can be an absolute pain to get donked on, especially if you don't understand the mechanics. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Warthunder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.